Hello everyone, hope you're all doing good. We thought we'd do a video about the lenses that we use and why we might use some of them on a wedding day. We're really inspired by cinema and things that things that we see at the cinema and, great TV shows and things like that. And we like to be able to, see how we can bring those kind of inspirations to a wedding film as well. So let's get started. So first lens is a lens that a lot of wedding videographers will be familiar with. This is the Samyang 85mm T1.5. It's a cinema lens, so that means there's no kind of clicks for the aperture, and it's got a longer focus throw, which means we've got a lot more control over what's in focus and what's out of focus. All of our lenses, aside from one, are manual focus. That's not to gloat or anything. That's just because we like to decide on what's in focus and what isn't. Autofocus lenses, you're kind of at the mercy of the camera deciding what's going to be in focus. So this lens is nice and sharp. I use this for about 60-70% of a wedding day. Charlotte uses this lens for 95% of the wedding day. We've got one of these each. It's very sharp, but we use this red ring around the top is a diffusion filter, which softens the kind of harsh edges that digital cameras kind of have and makes everyone's skin look a little nicer. 85mm focal length is perfect, so we can be quite far away from the action but still seem kind of like we're in the party. You can shoot wide open, so you can shoot in the dark pretty much, especially with cameras these days. And this is a beautiful lens, and we use this for most of a wedding day. Ceremony, speeches, reception, portraits, dancing, every part of the wedding day. So that is our workhorse lens that we both use. The next lens that I'm going to talk about is the 12mm Samyang lens that lives on our third camera, which we have for ceremony and speeches. It's quite wide, so we can stick it at the back of the room, but it's really dinky, so we can, it's nice and small. So the smaller camera that we've got, we can hide at the back of a church or ceremony space or reception room when speeches are going on, and it means, we can hide this out of the way and have something to cut back to when me and Charlotte are possibly moving, things like that. This is also coupled with a Cinebloom filter for a moment, which takes off those harsh edges. I forgot to mention, we always use neutral density filters, ND filters, from a company called Gobe. This is just essentially a pair of sunglasses that go on the front of the camera, and they have different densities of how much light they're stopping through. It's like a pair of sunglasses for your lens. We use Earth in particular because they plant trees with every purchase. That's the 12mm Samyang lens. The next lens I'm going to talk about is the Helios 44-2. It's a copy of, not to go too geeky or anything, but this is a copy of a Zeiss lens that the Soviet era kind of factory started making post-World War II. The interesting thing about this lens, for me anyway, is the characteristics that are considered flaws, things like lens flares and the fall off on the sides of the frame. I personally think it's really beautiful and quite ethereal, and I think that's why I'm intrigued to use it for wedding films, especially things like portraits, letter reading and stuff like that. It can really add a whimsical kind of feeling. And the flares in it are absolutely beautiful. One of my favourite cinematographers, Greg Fraser, famously used this lens in the Dune franchise. It's really amazing to see a lens like this being used, on a production of such a scale. I use these for establishing portraits. That's kind of it. It's just a really beautiful lens. It's really, really beautiful on skin. And it's just a really lovely lens to use. So that's the Helios 44-2. So the next lens I'm going to talk about is the Petzval f1.7 55mm. This is quite a new lens. I got this a few months ago, and I had put a lot of research into this because I watched a film called Blonde, a film about Marilyn Monroe, and one of the lenses that he used in that film was one of these lenses, and it is absolutely beautiful. You can't use it in every scenario. It's got a very kind of dreamlike kind of feeling. We'll show that in the sample imagery. It's really, really beautiful for portraits and things like that. it's just such a gorgeous look and quite ethereal and very different to anything that I've seen. You got a super swirly background. It works really well in situations where there's trees and things like that, different textures in the background. It's just really beautiful, and I love using this. I'm really looking forward to using this more in the future. That is the Petzval 55mm f1.7. So this next lens is a bit of monstrosity, really. This is a projector lens. So back in the day, cinemas used to play 35mm films. They used to project them through a lens like this, and that would get projected onto the cinema screen. I did a lot of research into this. I was talking to a guy on eBay who makes these for about 3 years before I pulled the trigger in the end. This is the biggest kind of deep dive I've went for kind of wacky lenses. So this kind of section here isn't actually part. These are 3D printed parts. That's the lens itself is only kind of that big. Can't take this everywhere. It's 120mm, so you need a lot of space in the background. But it's so beautiful, and the way that it flares is super interesting. Yeah, it's just a really fun lens to use, and I might use this for portraits, but that's kind of it. It's don't take this everywhere. It's quite big. It's not very heavy, but it's quite bulky, and it literally has, you can hear it, these really janky 3D printed parts on it. But it's a beautiful lens, and yeah, it's a nice one to have in the kit if you've got the space to use it. Things like the Lake District and things like that, when you've got lots of space around you, it works well. But yeah, so this is called the KO120M projection lens. And yeah, hopefully you can see that it looks really beautiful from the sample imagery. But yeah, that's the projection lens. Another lens that we use is the lens that I'm filming with right now. It's the Sony 28mm f2. This is used primarily this is the only autofocus lens that we have. This is used pretty much solely for confetti. So when we're working with the photographer and the content creators and things like that, we've kind of got two options when we're doing confetti. We can either walk back with you, so me, the photographer, and content creator, we'll be walking back kind of shoulder to shoulder with you. This is what this lens is used for, just so we can move and keep you in focus. We always shoot confetti from at least 2 angles, sometimes 3 if the wind's not too bad. Charlotte from behind, me in front with the photographer and other people who are going to be documenting the day. If we need to be walking back with the couple, this is when this lens gets used. It's really beautiful, it's really sharp. This is always coupled with another Cinebloom filter, so we can take that digital edge off slightly, make everyone look a little bit nicer. And yeah, that's a Sony 28mm f2. And that's kind of it. They're the main lenses that we use. Like I say, most of the time it's the Samyang. That's the kind of the workhorse of the bunch. But hopefully you might have seen like a little insight into why we use certain lenses, what situations we use them in, and things like that. If you've got any lens questions or anything, let us know. And yeah, I've hopefully not rambled too much. But yeah, it's been interesting. So yeah, any questions, let us know. Cheers.